Shopify recently announced its financial results for the quarter ending June 2025, and it is wonderful. Shopify has increased its revenue by 31% and its free cash flow by 16%. This is awesome. I mean, it obviously shows that there is definitely still a market for e-commerce and direct response and all kinds of businesses selling things online. So you may be wondering, if you're working with Shopify, is this the best solution for my online store? And if you're just getting started and you're looking at different alternatives, you're wondering, should I just go with Shopify? Because they have obviously built a solid foundation for business owners to host their stores and provide them with all kinds of tools to make selling things online easier. I'm going to be the first one to tell you Shopify is an amazing platform. They have incredible tech. They have a lot of different plugins and themes that are very easy to build for your store. So even if you're not tech savvy, you can really launch your business fairly quickly with very limited technical skills. So these are all wonderful things and obviously will increase the amount of business that you can do because you have so many tools available to you. Now, today, I want to talk to you about Shopify alternatives. Now, Shopify, as I said, is a great platform. It's user-friendly, and there are obviously some very good use cases for using it. But if it is out of your budget, or if you're looking to go into another direction, for example, if you really want to have a hold of your customer information and really own the customer journey, then Shopify is not your best bet. There are other platforms out there that will work much better for you. Also, there are a ton of businesses out there that Shopify just doesn't support. And when I say Shopify doesn't support, I want to be specific and say Shopify Payments doesn't support. So you can use Shopify, but not use their payment engine, which is Shopify Payments. Now, they have built Shopify for you to have an all-in-one experience and be able to plug and play, your payment processing. So it's easy and simple. Although one thing you need to be aware of is that Shopify does not support all online businesses. So I see this on a daily basis with my business, Direct PayNet, where we work with several types of merchants and niches, getting them payment processing. We get calls by people who are using Shopify, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, Shopify is still working great, but Shopify Payments, I've gotten a notice that they don't want to work with me anymore. I thought they were one and the same. So no, they are not. Obviously, it's one umbrella, it's one company, but they can decide to shut you down from Shopify Payments, but still keep you on the Shopify platform. Now, you might say, hey, that's okay. I'll use another payment processor and so forth. So there is one major downfall if you are working with Shopify and you want to get your own payment processor. First is that Shopify charges an extra percentage fee, and that fee can vary depending on which platform you use and so forth. So, you're literally just paying them to let you use another provider, which is extremely silly. And it doesn't make any sense to be paying a fee just to be able to use another payment processor in, your CRM and in your web store, especially if they're the ones that told you you can't use Shopify Payments for your business, right? They should be able to give you an alternative or let you have an alternative and not have to pay an extra cost. Now, another thing, you may say, hey, I'll continue using Shopify Payments until it becomes a problem. And here's the thing, Shopify will not let you have more than one payment processor plugged into your Shopify store at a time. So if you're using Shopify Payments, even if you do get a backup for another payment processor, you won't be able to use that payment processor until, you're ready to shut down Shopify Payments. So, it really is built to keep you in this ecosystem of Shopify and Shopify products. Although you have to keep in mind something as important as payment processing, you need to have a backup, and they're almost making it impossible for you to have a backup because you cannot plug in another payment processor in their platform. It's really just one at a time. So if you're working with Shopify Payments, you can't work with your own payment processor as well. Also, another thing you have to keep in mind is you get limited access to your customer data. If you need to migrate, or if you need to change the way you do business, or if you want to spin something off somewhere else, they make it very difficult for you to get that payment processing data. They give you some information, but you don't really own that customer. Their payment platform owns it. So, it is very important that you understand these limitations as a business owner. And like I said, if these are not limitations for you and you're finding a way to work with Shopify, that's great. But you need to be aware if you're making decisions on which platform to use for your business. And keep in mind, you could have a Shopify store and you can have another store, another e-commerce store, another separate website with its own separate setup. So it's not that you have to just keep it limited to Shopify and not be able to expand elsewhere. You can have different campaigns on different social platforms or different advertising platforms that are directing to various shops. One can direct to a Shopify store versus one can connect to your own website with your own payment processing. So keep in mind, there's some hybrid approaches that may actually work better for your business. Now, you may be wondering, what are some alternatives? Like, if you cannot work with Shopify or if you don't want to work with Shopify, I mean, it is a little bit more expensive as a platform just because of all the tools that you're using. There are some other platforms that are, equally as good and can work for your business. So if, for example, you're in dropshipping, you're on print on demand, you sell digital products, I would tell you Shopify is really not your best friend. It's really not going to be a place where you're going to be able to continue working without any issues. Also, if you're selling supplements, that's another point of contention for Shopify, especially the Shopify payment side of things. So, anything where you're in a direct response type of space or anything in the, you may be medium or high risk or direct to consumer type products, you may have a problem. So, like I said, you can continue working with Shopify, but then look at alternatives. And one alternative may be if you have a blog, for example, on WordPress. Yes, people still do that and it still works well on SEO. You may look into something like WooCommerce, or you can just use WooCommerce on its own. Now, WooCommerce, one of the biggest benefits is that it's very low cost and it has a lot of third-party developed tools. So there is, an unlimited amount of integrations and an unlimited amount of tools, and it's really right at your disposal. You can pay for the tools that you want so you can minimize your cost. You don't need to have a ton of tools plugged in there. And there's, active developers that are constantly building on this and so forth. So the platform is fairly solid and has a lot of tools available to you. And with WooCommerce, obviously you can get a plugin and you can pretty much plug in any gateway, any payment processor that you'd like at no extra cost, just obviously the cost that you're paying with your payment processor. So that is a really, really big benefit. It gives you a lot of flexibility on your data and you're really owning that process and owning your store. Now, WooCommerce does work well, for small to medium type shops. If you're a coach or if you have a subscription type business, it does really well with custom billing schedules. It does well with coaching. So these are the types of businesses that can work well in a WooCommerce environment. Obviously, if you're very large, a large B2B or a B2C, doing over, I would say, $100,000 a month, you may want to look into something else. An example could be BigCommerce. That platform has gained a lot of strength in the last few years. There's a lot of development and it is a much more powerful type of platform. Now, the big difference with BigCommerce is there are a lot of native integrations. So they actually, develop a lot of different tools and different apps that you can use versus WooCommerce, which has a lot of third-party development, which may open you up, obviously, to some issues and support issues and so forth. BigCommerce really has it all in-house and really builds a lot of native applications. Also, one very big positive here is that there is no additional charge for payment processing. So you can plug in, a fair amount of gateways in there and you can start processing and you are only paying your payment processing fees with your provider. You are not paying BigCommerce or their platform any fees for payment processing, which is a huge benefit. And obviously, when you have your own payment processing facilities and your own gateway, then you own your customer data and you can test different pricing models and, port your data from one to the other. For example, if you don't like BigCommerce and you want to migrate somewhere else, you're the owner of that data and you're able to move ahead fairly quickly because that gateway and that payment processor is yours. So you can move it anywhere you like. Now, if you have a wholesale business, if you have multiple brands, if you want a more inclusive support experience, then, this is probably a better option for you than WooCommerce. And obviously their closed loop environment, for example, Google Store versus Apple Store, there's a lot more going on at BigCommerce natively. So the apps tend to work a little bit better than, for example, a player like WooCommerce. But you do have to have a certain size and sales amount in order to be able to support working with them, because it may be cost prohibitive. So I am not related to any of these companies. These are just things that I hear often from our clients and looking into the industry and so forth. I've been doing this for 20 years. So I understand, what softwares may be better or worse for different businesses. That being said, BigCommerce is more expensive than WooCommerce. So it could be cost prohibitive for a lot of online merchants. Now, if, you're building a huge business, you have, sales all around the world, you need to maintain tax compliance, you need to have, a lot of users built in with different rights and different access abilities and so forth, you may want to consider a platform like Magento. It is now called Adobe Commerce. So, I still refer to it as Magento, but they do have a new name. And this is really for large scale, maybe enterprise level businesses. I definitely look into it if I was doing, $500,000 a month or more in terms of sales, because they have all these tools that are available to you. They are open source. So this is not a tool that you can just plug and play. You need to have a development team. You need to have people behind you that are able to, support developing different things that you may need or specialize features that, are important for your company. But it really is a huge software that will allow you to accept various payment modes. I'm not just talking about credit cards or ACH and so forth. If you have specific payment modes you want to accept in Europe, if you have, for example, crypto options and so forth, this will really allow you to have the full spectrum of payment modes. And I love this. Obviously, as a payment processing expert, I always tell my clients, you got to meet your clients where they are. So if your client wants to pay you with crypto or ACH or a SEPA payment in Europe, which is a bank transfer, anything like that, you want to be able to include as many of these payment modes as possible on your shopping cart and be able to capture the sale however it is possible. So this type of software, Magento, Adobe Commerce, will allow you to do that. And as I said, open source will allow you to build tools and specific things that you may need to have for your store. But you really need to be at an enterprise level in order to be able to support that. It's not a plug and play. It's not comparative to, for example, WooCommerce or Shopify, where you can kind of set it and forget it and build a small store. So this is really for large scale businesses, and they do not charge you extra for your payment processing. Really, this is a platform for, hosting your business and having tools for your business. They are not capitalizing on payment processing yet. I do see it often as, platforms gain popularity. They add some payment processing facilities in there to try to capture that extra revenue from online businesses. But for now, you can use your own, and you can actually not pay an extra fee for using your own payment processing. So, even if you want to go with Stripe or you want to go with PayPal or whatever the case is, you can just plug it right in and you're just paying your fees with that payment processor. Now, I do have to mention, as a little side note here, I was talking about alternative payment processing methods. It is important to understand your market and to know how people in your market want to pay. So in the US, credit cards are very popular, and that's what a lot of people use to pay for various products and services online. But, as things change a lot in the market and the economy changes and so forth, there are a lot of consumers who are looking for other ways to pay. For example, ACH or Zelle or Cash App or different things. And my company, Direct Payment, can help you navigate that. So if you need help in understanding how you can capture all the payments, feel free to drop me a line down below. My email address is going to be available there. You can just send me a quick note asking me, what else you can add into your store to maximize your profit. Now, moving on to give you a last option for businesses that are maybe more budget conscious and need something that's a little bit more plug and play. There is a solution called Shift4Shop. It used to be called 3D Cart. That was what we were used to calling it. And this is a much smaller software, a little bit more plug and play. And it does offer you a lot of similar features. Shopify has a lot more, but they do offer a lot of the core features that you would need to start your store at a much lower price. And obviously, if you're not technical, it will actually help you, get started quite quickly with very limited tech resources. And the added bonus, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, is Unlike Shopify, you do not need to pay an extra fee to have your own payment processing. So again, whether you're working with Stripe, PayPal, or a company like mine, DirectPayNet, we can help you get a merchant account, plug right in there, and you just pay the fees for your payment processing. You don't have to pay the software that's hosting your store an extra fee like Shopify makes you do if you're not using Shopify Payments. Now, one thing that's interesting for Shift for Shop is they're doing a lot more development in SEO and AI and so forth to get you ranking on different search engines, including AI search engines. So that may be an interesting play for some business owners to really try to capitalize on that market. So that could be a very interesting alternative. So obviously there are a ton of softwares and there are a ton of ways to get your store launched. It's important for you to understand, where you're going, where is your market, what's important for you, really key features. Using ChatGPT just to kind of, do a brain dump of what you need and organize your thoughts, and then kind of look through different softwares that can actually fulfill that will be very important for your budget, because, sometimes you may start looking at some solutions and there are some very big solutions that are very expensive, but you don't need all the features in there. And obviously, if you own your data and you have your own payment processing, switching to another platform is very simple, because you can just take your payment gateway and plug it in somewhere else and then get started. So if you make a mistake and choose the wrong one of the most important things that you can do is have your own payment processing and retain your customer data, and to make sure, obviously, that you're only paying for features that you actually need. Now, in conclusion, as I said, Shopify is a great platform. As we see from their record-breaking results, they are doing very well financially, and they are improving their platform. And they have some new deals with ChatGPT that are going to integrate Shopify stores in there and so forth. So it is a great platform. And, if you do want to use it, I do suggest that you use that in conjunction to maybe another setup, if possible, in order to pit these two options against each other, and also, compare user experience, profitability. Obviously Shopify costs more to manage and so forth than some other solutions. So you can do both at the same time. And if you do decide to work with Shopify, consider getting yourself a backup payment processor that you're going to plug into your own website, because I have seen many, many nightmares of Shopify Payments shutting merchants down. So they have this Shopify store, but they don't have any way to accept payments. So if you have any questions on alternative payment modes and how you can add them to your store, whether you're working with Shopify or another software, feel free to let me know down below. I would be happy to help you. My team and I at DirectPayNet are experts in payment processing, and we can help you make more money guaranteed by using some simple tools in your payment processing arsenal. Have yourself a great day, and thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content.